Before the auction began, no one noticed the man standing near the back wall, half hidden in shadow. All eyes were fixed on the Belgian Malinois swaying slightly under the harsh glare of the overhead light. Once a decorated K9 officer, now discarded, forgotten, and visibly broken. His left hind leg trembled with every shallow breath, and his eyes, once sharp and commanding, were clouded with confusion and quiet pain. The auctioneer cleared his throat, voice echoing through the hollow hall. Next up, retired K9 unit, male, 7 years old, served with distinction. Slight mobility issue. A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. Starting bid, $100. Silence. Not a hand rose. Come on, folks, the auctioneer pleaded, sweat beading on his brow. This dog saved lives. Waste of money, someone muttered. The Malinois lowered his head, ears drooping as if he understood every word. Just as the gavel lifted to close the lot, a calm voice cut through the stillness. I'll take him. Every head turned. No one recognized the quiet stranger in the worn flannel shirt. No one knew why he'd spoken, but what happened next would leave the entire room speechless. If this story moves you, hit like. It helps more people see it. Don't forget to subscribe for real stories of courage and second chances. And hey, drop your country name in the comments. I read every single one, long before the auction lights and the whispers of pity. This dog had a name, Rex. He wasn't just any patrol dog, he was K9 Rex. Partner to Officer Lena Carter and one of the city's most trusted defenders. Their bond began at the academy, where Rex stood out not for size but for focus. While others barked at distractions, Rex watched. When commands were given, he moved like lightning. On the streets they were inseparable. Rain or snow, day or night, Rex was always at Lena's side, sniffing out explosives, tracking suspects through alleyways, calming frightened children during crises. Their greatest test came during a hostage situation in an abandoned factory. Gunfire erupted. Without hesitation, Rex charged between Lena and a bullet meant for her chest. The shot shattered his hip, but he held the suspect down until backup arrived. The department called it heroism. The newspapers called it sacrifice. But for Rex, it was simply duty. He never understood the word retired. For months after his injury, he waited by the precinct's back gate every morning, tail giving a hopeful flick at every passing boot. He didn't know the rules had changed. To him, loyalty didn't expire. Now, under the auction spotlight, Rex stood alone. His once glossy coat was dull, his frame thinner, his proud stance replaced by a cautious limp. The crowd shifted in their seats, arms crossed, expressions indifferent. Who'd want a dog that can't even run? A man scoffed. A woman whispered to her husband, he'd cost a fortune in vet bills. Rex's ears twitched at the sound, not understanding the words, but feeling the rejection like a cold wind. The auctioneer tried again, voice strained. $50. 40? Still nothing. Rex's gaze drifted across the room, searching for a familiar face, a kind voice, anything that reminded him of the life he'd known. But Lena wasn't there. The harsh light above flickered, casting his shadow long and thin across the wooden floor, a ghost of the hero he once was. The air grew heavier, thick with the weight of abandonment. For the first time in his life, Rex felt truly unseen, as if his years of service had vanished into silence. Unbeknownst to the crowd, two men watched Rex with hearts full of regret. Near the rear exit stood Officer Lena Carter, now in plain clothes, her eyes red-rimmed. She hadn't planned to come, but when she heard Rex was being auctioned off like surplus gear, she couldn't stay away. She remembered the nights she'd slept on the clinic floor after his surgery, holding his paw so he wouldn't wake up alone. She'd begged the department to let her adopt him, but policy was policy. Injured canines go through official channels. She'd walked away, promising herself it was temporary, but time passed, and Rex faded from the precinct's memory. Now, watching him stand abandoned, guilt twisted in her chest. Just a few rows behind her stood Elias Grant, a former combat medic, drawn inside only to escape the rain. His eyes locked onto Rex the moment he entered. The limp, the scar above the eye, the way the dog held himself, steady despite the pain, it all triggered a memory. Years ago, in a desert far from here, his own K9 partner, Titan, had died in his arms after an IED blast. Elias had sworn never to open his heart to another dog. Yet here he was, unable to look away. The auctioneer's voice cracked. Last call. $10? The crowd had already turned their attention to the next lot. Rex stood motionless, breath shallow, eyes fixed on the floor. Then from the back, Elias stepped forward. I'll take him, murmurs erupted. That dog's damaged, someone said. Elias didn't flinch. He walked to the front, pulled crumpled bills from his pocket, and placed them on the table. The auctioneer stared, stunned. You sure, sir? There's a healthy pup next, same price. Elias nodded. I'm sure. He turned to Rex and crouched slowly, offering an open palm. Hey, boy, he said, voice soft as falling snow. Rex hesitated, then limped forward. Their eyes met. Two souls who knew what it meant to carry invisible wounds. When Rex's muzzle brushed Elias's hand, his tail gave the faintest wag. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, respect, and the first spark of trust. That night, Elias drove his old pickup down a winding forest road. Rex curled in the passenger seat, head resting against the window. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by towering pines and the quiet hum of crickets. They arrived at a small cabin, smoke curling from the chimney, porch light glowing like a beacon. Inside, the air smelled of wood smoke and coffee. A thick blanket lay by the fireplace, placed there hours before as if Elias had known Rex was coming. He knelt beside the dog, gently running a hand over his fur, careful to avoid the scar on his hip. You've been through enough, he murmured. From now on, it's just peace. Rex exhaled slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing. For the first time in months, human touch didn't mean pain or examination. It meant safety. Later, as firelight danced on the walls, Elias sat by the window, turning Titan's old dog tag in his fingers. He'd come to the auction to escape the past. Instead, he'd found a second chance. Days turned into weeks. Rex began to heal, not just in body but in spirit. Each morning, he'd limp onto the porch, sniffing the dew-kissed grass, glancing back only to make sure Elias was near. He no longer flinched at sudden sounds. His coat regained its sheen. One stormy night, thunder cracked like gunfire. Rex bolted upright, trembling. Elias didn't speak, just opened his arms. Rex pressed close, and Elias whispered, "Easy, soldier. You're home." But peace was shattered one rainy evening when footsteps crunched on the gravel outside. Then the back door splintered open. Two masked men burst in, crowbars in hand. "Stay down," one snarled. Elias raised his hands, calm. But Rex had already made his choice. With a growl that shook the cabin walls, he lunged, ignoring the pain in his leg, sinking his teeth into an intruder's arm. The second man swung. The crowbar struck Rex's side with a sickening thud. Elias grabbed a bat, driving them out into the storm. When it was over, Rex lay bleeding by the hearth, eyes locked on Elias, waiting for approval. "You did good, boy," Elias choked out, tears mixing with rain on his face. "You're not broken. You're my hero." Sirens wailed in the distance. Paramedics rushed Rex to the vet, stabilized but critical. Hours later, Lena appeared at the clinic door, uniform soaked, eyes wide with fear. When she saw Rex on the stretcher, she dropped to her knees. "Shadow," she caught herself. "Rex." The dog stirred at her voice, tail giving a weak thump. She stroked his head, voice breaking. "I should have fought harder for you." Elias stood nearby, silent. After a long pause, she looked up. "You gave him back his purpose." He shook his head. "No. He gave me mine." They sat together through the night, two people bound by love for the same brave soul. At sunrise, the vet emerged with good news. He's a fighter. He'll be okay. Relief washed over them like warm rain. Weeks later, the city held a ceremony in Rex's honor. Reporters gathered, cameras flashed, and officers lined the steps of the precinct. When Elias and Rex arrived, applause erupted. The chief placed a valor medal around Rex's neck. "For unwavering courage and loyalty beyond duty," he announced. Rex stood tall between Elias and Lena, tail wagging slowly, eyes bright with quiet pride. He wasn't the forgotten dog from the auction hall anymore. He was a hero, seen, honored, and loved. That evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, the three of them sat on Elias's porch. Lena tossed a tennis ball. Rex chased it in his lopsided gait, heart full. Later, a letter arrived. Rex was to be the first retired K9 honored with a permanent place in the department's Hall of Valor. But fame meant little compared to the quiet mornings, the shared silence, the gentle pats, the unspoken understanding that they'd all been saved by a dog who never stopped believing in second chances. As twilight settled, Rex lay at Elias's feet, metal gleaming, eyes closed not in pain, but in peace. Because true heroes, no matter how many scars they carry, never really fade. They just wait for someone to see them again.